Hello and welcome to Today in the News on Vanguard Live. I am Precious Chukudi. We begin with the front pages of the papers, starting off with Vanguard this morning. Vanguard is leading with ministerial list, anxiety as 7 ex-governors, others pile pressure on Tinubu. The writer says APC members urged to remain calm. Governors submit 3 names, Rivers APC leader split, Tinubu to meet the constitutional provision, Makinde to make nominations, technocrats, LP, PDP leaders to make lists out this week. You can also see a photo story showing adverting another doctor strike. And on page 15, how Nigerian leaders disappointed citizens, Africa, Black Race World, and that's coming from Obasanjo. On page 29, Musk rebrands Twitter, replaces bird logo with X. Glass fairing, reps to recover over $9 billion fines from oil companies. On page 8, Global Principle for Fair Compensation for Publishers by Google Facebook launch. As Nobel laureate BBC, NGE, others endorse principles. Stories above, disclose identity of hashtag NSAS mass burial victims. Amnesty tells federal government. Tinubu not a magician. APC didn't promise overnight solution. And that's coming from OSHIOMHOLE. You can read that on page 9. On page 13, 4 arrested as Tinubu hails operative over 4 terror attack on residents. Lastly, on the front page of Vanguard newspaper, we have a foreign investment in stock market falls 40.4% to 145.1 billion naira. All right, let's take a look at the Nation newspaper. The Nation is leading with subsidy removal, more states roll out palliatives. The writer says Kwara, Ogun, Imo announce support for workers, citizen, Jigawa boost farmer, others. Trade Union Congress seek quick action. Why industry shun discourse by experts? The writer says NEC criticizes high electricity consumption rate by households. Stories above, Tinubu will fix insecurity, says Akpabio. Senate backs rule for rulers. How we will end the sit at home by state government rather. Kano not in support. Resident doctors give conditions to halt planned strike. Tribunal sack Delta LP rep for Elumelu. All right, let's take a look at the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian is leading with made in Nigeria smartphones fumble as monthly importation hits 50 billion naira. A breakdown of critical metal in a smartphone. We can see that on the front page of The Guardian. Akpabio eyes constitutional rule for traditional rulers as Abbas commits to restructuring. Tribunal nullifies LP candidates election, declares the PDP the Elumelu winner. Petrol subsidy, making palliative work for people. Mass burial, Amnesty International tackles Lagos government on identities of hashtag NSAS victims. As creativity goes awry under guise of skit making, prank, that's a news analysis on page 4. Nigeria has failed Africa. Poorly implemented policies drive citizens to poverty. Obasanjo laments. You can see that on page 6. And that's how we can take on the front page of The Guardian. Let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. The Punch is leading with subsidy pain. Labour talk stuff. ASU protesters condemn relief plan. Rider says the SANU ASU says fuel subsidy unintelligently removed. NLC meets today. TUC rejects the 5% telecom tax. Planned tuition hike. Kwara Ogun roll out palliatives. We can see a photo story of a strike in Benin City. A pregnant woman, children among Ondo tanker fire victims. That's coming from eyewitnesses. And supervisors, vigilators selling WAEC questions online, arrested on trial. That's coming from WAEC boss. 3 Oshun students hospitalized as gunmen open fire on Baba shop. Stories above, most Nigerian leaders' knowledge of development shallow. That's coming from Obasanjo. Forex crisis, passengers groan as the foreign airline hike fares. You can see that on page 19. And lastly, on the front page of the Punch newspaper, Navy won't stop burning vessels ferrying stolen crude. And that's how we can take on the front pages of the papers. Join us after the break. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. If you're just joining still today in the news on Vanguard Life, I am Precious Chikudi. Joining us to talk about some of the stories on the front pages of the paper is Mr. Dayo Akintobi, publisher of Illipeji Today, Ikeja Today, and Lekki Today. It's good to have you join us this morning, sir?
Good morning, Precious. Good morning to all our viewers.
All right, so let's delve into what we have this morning. And of course, we're talking about the ministerial list, and there is palpable anxiety in the ranks of some former and serving governors of the APC as regards the delay by the president to release the final list of ministerial nominees. And this is fueled by the information that the president has been editing the list he previously prepared. What are your thoughts? I mean, we've had talks on this ministerial list. How, when is it going to come out, and who is going to be there?
Well, the thing about that ministerial list that complicates issues is the constitutional requirement that there must be at least one minister from each of the 36 states. So basically, historically, the president or the nominating entity has had to collaborate with the governors because it's not possible, no matter how politically engaged and how wide your network is, it's not possible for you to know competent people from each and every one of the 36 states. So generally you refer to the governor, you defer to the governors, also for political reasons, because you want the governors to be your friend. You want them to cooperate with you during your tenure to make things a little bit easier for you. In the same way, you want a cooperative National Assembly. So the nominating entity will usually defer to the subnationals, in this case, the state governments, and say, okay, bring forward 3 names of individuals from your state for consideration. So let's say all 36 state governors put in 3 names. Of course, the president will already have some idea of some people that he wants in his cabinet who are from various states. But he will still honor the governors to that extent, to tell them to bring nominations from their states. The issue now becomes the shortlisting or the screening of those that are put forward by the governors, in terms of the president now choosing one from each state. So that's where the politicking begins, because traditional leaders are putting names forward, National Assembly people are putting names forward, governors are putting names forward, political party bigwigs are putting names forward. So all of a sudden the president has a mishmash. Maybe from one state he may have 10, 15 names, and he's only going to choose one. So it becomes a big problem, and I'm sure this is part of what leads to the delay in releasing the list, is that the jockeying for preference and the politicking becomes so intense that I don't care how wide your network is, because remember, President Tinubu is reputed to be an astute politician who has widespread networks across the country. So ostensibly that should make it a little bit easier for him, but because of the intense competition, and that goes back to speak to the way our politics is structured. Ministerial positions and appointments are viewed as vehicles to immense wealth. If it was a matter of going to serve the country, people shouldn't really be that agitated about getting an appointment or not getting an appointment. Of course, there are some people, like some traditional leaders and some others, who believe that if one of their people is appointed minister, he will bring the dividends of democracy to their domain. He will ensure that road projects and other projects are approved for their constituency. So some have genuine reasons for lobbying for some specific people. But by and large, it's because ministerial appointments are viewed as juicy. That's why you hear some people say, oh, we want the juicy ministries like finance, like works, like information, the places where the budgets are big, the oversight is minimal, and they pretty much have a free run of what they want to do in that ministry. So I think it's all lopsided and upside down because of this notion of the fact that people are not going there to serve the Commonwealth. They're going there to serve themselves and a very small circle of insiders that they are loyal to. So, of course, this is going to be a problem for the president, having to eventually decide to who to pick from among the plethora of options that are put before him, and that's what's causing the delay. So, anxiety. There's anxiety because people are worried that perhaps their own nominees might not make it. And it goes back to what I already said. There's just too much vested interest in the fact that politics has so much gain, so much potential gain on an individual basis versus a common basis. And until we fix that, there will always be this problem with people trying to aspire to nominations, to be elected into office. All of the whole political process, it will always be a slugfest simply because it's just too attractive and there's just too much to gain. That's what's happening here.
All right, there are talks that we really need to make positions like this ministerial list, not juicy enough for people to want to go there, except if they're going there to serve. But how can looking at what is happening, how can we or the government basically look into that? For example, we've been talking about reduction of cost of governance, but it doesn't look like that is happening. Instead, we're seeing that they're getting more money. How can we make these positions less attractive so that we have more people who are going there to serve as to going there to just squander and take money for their own personal pockets?
Well, a lot of people have been talking about the 1963 Constitution and the way the whole political structure was set up, to where we had a part-time legislature. If you go back and start from the National Assembly, if you look at the three arms of government, and from the judiciary to the legislative to the executive, you look at it and you wonder what we're doing with a full-time parliament, where we have two houses of parliament. They are all full-time. They are all drawing all kinds of allowances, all kinds of bonuses, salaries, and a big drain on the coffers or the purse of the government. So same thing applies to the executive. The executive is over bloated. The administration has too many ministries. It has too many appointed positions, too many aides, too many special assistants, too many civil servants. So until you begin to prune government down, perhaps consolidate some ministries. I remember in the first term of the previous administration, we had works, power, and housing under one ministry. Then by the second term, they got split again to where works and housing were one ministry and power was spun off into a separate ministry. So what that does is that it overbloats government, and the more MDAs, the more ministries, departments, and agencies you have in government, the more people you need to staff them. The more people you need to staff them, the more you spend. So when you look at it and you say, how do we make government less juicy or less attractive to where everybody is scrambling to go there? The bottom line is you have to reduce the potential for personal gain. How do you do that? First, they reduce the size of government. They say the average convoy of the average minister or legislator is 22 cars. You need to reduce that. You need to reduce the presidential fleet, reduce the number of ministries, reduce the number of aides, reduce the number of domestic servants, reduce the number of cars, allowances, clothing allowance, housing allowance, medical allowance, travel allowance. There's all kinds of mad allowances that are overbloating government. So what we really need to do, and that word has been being bandied about, it means different things to different, it's called restructuring. We've been crying for it for so long, but ultimately government the foundation needs to be taken apart and rebuilt in such a way that there's no opportunity, or there's little opportunity for personal aggrandizement. If you are going there to serve, it's because number one, you are truly committed to a better Nigeria. Number two, because it will burnish your CV. If you have it on your resume that you served as a minister or a special assistant to the president or to a governor or a commissioner, it strengthens your CV for things you want to do in the future. So it's a personal attribute, it's a personal achievement for you that stands you in better stead for the future. Not that is where your gain will come from. It's the fact that you've held this position and you acquitted yourself admirably to the point to where you did good things. You have positive things to show for your tenure in office as a commissioner, as a minister. That is what will now make you attractive after you've left office. Banks will headhunt you. Fortune 500 companies will headhunt you. Places like the World Bank, the IMF, UN, all those kind of places will be looking for you because they see what you did while you were in office. That should be your personal gain. Not that while you are in office, you are inflating contracts and you are giving jobs to your cronies and all kinds of untoward, corrupt practices. So that's what I think. I think the whole system needs, I don't think it's a holistic solution. I don't think you can just cherry pick and do one thing here and do one thing here. I think it's going to better the contraption. I think the whole contraption needs to be dismantled and restructured from the bottom up.
Hmm. Also, we hear that party members are turned over, the purported nomination of former Governor Wike, and some have even gone ahead to even threaten that they will leave the party should the president abandon those that labored to ensure that the party still exists. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, Governor Wike, in the past election, Governor Wike played a funny role. He was openly adversarial to his own party's candidate, and he romanced the opposition candidate and essentially delivered Rivers State at the presidential election to President Tinubu. So, of course, he'll be expecting some payback for this. And I understand he's been lobbying quite actively that some sort of reward should be given to him for that. I am not too sure that a ministerial nomination is what is in the works for him, because I remember when President Tinubu was president-elect, he said, forget about government of national unity. I'm not interested in trying to bring in members of the opposition to kind of say, oh, let bygones be bygones and let's all work together for a better Nigeria. He said he's interested in a government of competence. He's going to be looking for the people who can do the job without political considerations. So I don't think the issue of rewarding Wike for his support during the election, the way to reward him would be by giving him a ministerial position. I think that's not just politicking. Without a doubt, I think Wike may more, because remember, in spite of all that Wike did, he's not left the PDP, and the PDP has not expelled him. So he's still a hardcore PDP member. So my thinking is Wike might be angling for something like chairmanship of his party. He might be angling for maybe an ambassadorship or something, but not something as front and center as a ministerial appointment that will actually look like, in spite of what he did to help the president in Rivers State to get the votes, it will kind of look like having an enemy within your fold if President Tinubu were to actually bring him in, which is the concern of many APC members, is that this guy has always been in opposition. He's never hidden the fact that he's a dyed-in-the-wool PDP person and he's not going to change his loyalty. So how can you not have somebody like that a heartbeat away from the presidency by being a minister? So I think it's all politicking. I don't think we'll see him as a minister, but that's not to say he won't be rewarded in some kind of way. Perhaps he'll put forward some nominees that the president can put on the boards of some parastatals. Perhaps he might have a say in who becomes the chairperson of the NDDC, which Rivers is very actively involved in the Niger Delta Development Commission and all that. So we'll see how it goes.
All right, moving on. President Obasanjo, at a public presentation of a book titled Reclaiming the Jewel of Africa, written by Dr. Olusegun Aganga, said that Nigerian political leaders have disappointed Nigerians, Africa, the black race, and the world for failing to make the nation the giants that everyone expected her to be. How do you respond?
Well, as long as President Obasanjo is including himself among those leaders, I have no problem with what he has said. It's if he's trying to exempt himself and say every other leader except me, that's where I would have a problem. But as long as he's including himself among those leaders, I don't dispute what he has said at all. I've been hearing things like, let's focus on the message and not on the messenger, because President Obasanjo is a very divisive person. Love him or hate him, half the people hate him, half the people love him. Half the people think he's the best thing since sliced bread, and the other half of the people think he's the biggest failure the country has ever had. So as long as he's including himself among the leaders who have not done the very best for Nigeria, I'm in total agreement, because look at where we are today. Look at all the developmental indices: education, health, infant mortality, life expectancy. You name any of the developmental indices, GDP, what's the minimum wage, inflation, you name it, interest rates, unemployment, all those indices were below averages, well below, we're on the bottom rung of the ladder in terms of world rankings. So how can we now say, and of course, where we are as a society is a directly correlates to the type of leadership we have, to the type of policies that government implements. That is what determines where we are as a people. So if at this point we still have youth unemployment that's bordering around 50%, we still have massive illiteracy in the north, if people are still going abroad to seek medical treatment, People are jackpying every other day because the environment is hostile to youth development. If you look at all the issues, food is expensive, transportation is prohibitive, even things like even getting to work is becoming a challenge now. Let's even go further. I mean, the world is at a stage now where they're looking at things like artificial intelligence. They're looking at things like Bitcoin. They're looking at things like coding. They're looking at non-renewable energy for transportation, for energy, for all these things. The world has moved on. We are still dealing with rudimentary stuff: roads, bridges, hospitals, schools, things that should have been sorted in the first decade of our independence. These are the basics that make human life livable. The basics. We don't even have the basics sorted out yet. And this is a function of leadership, because as individuals, we are limited with what we can do. In my own home, in my own environment, we try to achieve, we try to perform, we try individually, but collectively as a people, we've not made much progress. And it's not us individually that can move the country forward. Yeah, we do our own bit as individuals, but the sum total of all our efforts is what comes from government. So yeah, government has failed us miserably, and President Obasanjo is among those who has failed to do the right thing in terms of leadership. That's how I see it.
All right, moving on. OSHIOMHOLE has also said that Nigerians who voted for Tinubu know that they were not electing a magician, and that APC did not promise magical solutions to the nation's problems. What are your thoughts?
I didn't like that when I heard it yesterday, because I felt, first of all, that the president did promise prosperity. He said it during the campaign. He didn't say anything about you endure pains first before the goodness comes. He promised us that he would improve our lot as a people. And as human beings, we expected that from day one. Whether it was realistic or unrealistic, I don't think OSHIOMHOLE should have been saying that. First of all, I think it's wrong coming from him. I also think that he's not doing the government a good service by saying that, because people are going to get disillusioned. We're already going through a tough time. You're not telling us that, what did we elect government for? We elected, out of all the people who put themselves forward, we picked the person who we thought would do the best for us. And that best is supposed to begin from day one. It's not like, we will get to you a year from now because we met problems on ground. Look, there will always be problems on ground. That's what governance is about. There will always be problems. That's why we change governments from time to time. And the new government that comes in is voted in on the basis that the existing problems, it says it has solutions to solve. So it's a cop-out for you to be telling us, he's not a magician. We voted him in to do magic. Otherwise, if he didn't sell us on the idea that he can do magic, we would have picked somebody else. So I think it's wrong for OSHIOMHOLE to have said that. I think it's a cop-out. They're looking for excuses. And what he should do at this point is say, look, we met problems on ground. We're addressing them, and things will begin to get better. Please be a little bit patient with us. We're working assiduously. But the initial indications don't inspire confidence. Look, this week is the deadline for ministerial appointment. The deadline. So it's taking a whole 60 days. Whereas President Tinubu gave the impression I was prepared, that he would hit the ground running. I expected his ministers within the first week. Without ministers, without a cabinet in place, there's a vacuum. You can't really do the work expeditiously and efficiently as you should. So these are part of the things that don't inspire confidence. If you already have ministers in place within the first week of your being inaugurated, there's some work they would have already done by now that will begin to offer succor to the people. You're not telling us, he's not a magician. Well, he promised to be a magician. He's failing already because he hasn't appointed ministers in 60 days. All the things he has done, all the policies he has done have had deleterious effects on the well-being of the people, and we're not seeing any moves to make it better. Palliative. It's all talk. They pushed it back to the states, said the states should sort out minimum wage, the states should sort out palliatives, the states should do a new social register. So what do we have a president for? I don't get it. I don't get it at all.
All right, so let's take a look at Mr. and Mrs. before we go. And this morning, Mrs. seems to be speaking. She says, even if the 8,000 naira palliative for the poor by the government had come to pass, this family wouldn't have queued for such peanuts. We are not that poor. And Mr. replies and says, What if they later increase it to 250,000 naira?
Yeah, Mrs. will be the first in that queue. I would say, venture to say that, oh yeah, let them increase it to a decent amount of money. I'll be the one in the front of the queue. I'll even be in front of Mrs.
All right, thank you
All
so
right.
much, Mr. Daya Akintobi. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. He's the publisher of Ilupeju Today and Lekki Today. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us this morning. Also, remember that you can equally like, share, and subscribe on all our social media platforms showing on your screen. To find out more, go to our website www.vanguardindia.com to find out more. I am Precious Chukudi, and thank you for watching.